Welcome to Triumph IAS. It's a daily mains practice question and answer series. This program is exclusively designed for UPSC CSE aspirants. In this video discussion, we will discuss UPSC CSE mains previous 25-year questions. Question number 1. Chola architecture represents a high watermark in the evolution of temple architecture. Discuss. Let's start with the introduction of the answer. The Dravidian temple architecture started by the Pallavas reached its high water mark and got matured at the hand of the Cholas. The Cholas refined Pallava architecture with following notable features. The main body of the answer should be: Number 1. Cholas used stones instead of bricks. Envision eradicating poverty and ending hunger by 2030. But India still stands miles away from achieving these targets. Number 2. They decorated the walls with sculptures and paintings of deities, kings and queen instead of lion motifs from Pallava. Number 3. Temples were enclosed by decorative walls and entrance, Gopuram. Number 4. Temples of the built by Cholas also had an audience hall called Mandapa, a deity room called Garbhagriha, and a pyramid-like story above the deity room called Vimana. Number 5. The temples were decorated by a beautiful shikhara stone at the top. Each shikhara stone weighed in tons and had meticulous carvings on it. Conclusion of the answer is: during their reign, Cholas studded the entire Tamil landscape with such temples including Nageshwara, Brihadeshwara, Aravateshwara and Chidambaram. The temple architecture of Cholas was even followed by other kingdoms in South India and Sri Lanka. Question number 2. The role of individual MPs, members of parliament, has diminished over the years, and as a result, healthy constructive debates on policy issues are not usually witnessed. How far can this be attributed to the anti-defection law, which was legislated but with a different intention? Let's start with the introduction of the answer. Two arguments are often made in support of the anti-defection law. One argument is that this law would ensure stability of the government in an environment where money power can be used to persuade individual MPs to bring down elected governments. The main body of the answer should be: Number 1. The other argument is that MPs are elected on the party ticket. Voters have exercised their preference for a set of policies espoused by the party, and therefore, MPs should be bound by the decisions taken by the party. Number 2. Whereas there may be some merit in the first argument, there is a flaw in the second one. Voters decide on a combination of particular candidates and their support for the political parties. Number 3. The binding nature of the anti-defection law assumes that the MP is voted solely on the popularity of their party, akin to a list system. Though the first-past-the-post system, as experienced in India, also has some of these failings, the threshold for gaining a seat in the legislature is higher. Number 4. Another fundamental feature of the first-past-the-post system is that it increases the accountability of individual MPs. The anti-defection law breaks this link. MPs can say that they voted in a particular manner because their party asked them to do so. Number 5. They do not have to justify their individual votes on issues that may be important to their voters. For example, if a voter who believes that FDI in retail is harmful to her interests asks a Congress MP to justify his support for the issue, the answer can be that the MP had no choice given the anti-defection law. Number 6. If he dissented from the party line, he would lose his seat and would be unable to work for the electors' interests on several other issues. Furthermore, the anti-defection law removes the need for the government to build a broad consensus for its decisions. The ruling party can ensure the support of each of its MP by issuing a whip. Conclusion of the answer is: if it needs to build further support to get a majority, it only needs to convince the leaders of other parties, and not individual MPs. In a sense, the role of an MP is diminished to just a person who has to follow orders from the party bosses. Parliament can be effective only if individual MPs have a significant role as lawmakers and if they can be held accountable for their actions by their electorate. Question number 3. Normally, countries shift from agriculture to industry and then later to services, but India shifted directly from agriculture to services. What are the reasons for the huge growth of services vis-à-vis industry in the country? Can India become a developed country without a strong industrial base? Let's start with the introduction of the answer. Unlike other countries where economic growth has led to a shift from agriculture to industries, in India there has been a shift from agriculture to the service sector. The main body of the answer should be: Number 1. The growth in the service sector in India has been linked to the economic reforms of the 1990s. Reforms in the service sector were a part of the overall reform program which led to privatization, the removal of FDI restrictions, and streamlining of approval procedures, among others. Some of the factors for the huge growth of the services over industry in India. Number 1. The liberalization of economy during 1991 matched well with information technology boom. Number 2. Thus reform policies paved the way for the vast growth of the communication technology and information technology sector. Number 4. India's success in software and it-enabled serviced ITES exports has made it a significant services exporter. Since this, India's services growth has been led by software and it-enabled services. Number 5. Absence of a proper industrial policy, especially during 3 decades 1980 to 2010, kept industry sector way behind when the services sector was progressing substantially. The availability of large numbers of skilled manpower with comparatively lower labor cost enabled towards higher growth of services sector main reasons why India cannot become a developed country without a strong industrial base. Number 1. Strong industrial base is needed even for growth of other sectors, and demand of services and goods cannot be met for a huge population without any industrial base. Number 2. The services sector contributes 56.9% to the GDP but generates a mere 28.1% to the employment. Hence, it cannot be left alone without involving sector like industrial one. Number 3. There is no constraining for manufacturing demand as production could expand virtually without limit through exports in huge global market. Number 4. The trade imbalance cannot be rectified without a solid domestic manufacturing sector. India is still relatively a small player in manufacturing when compared to many world leaders. Number 5. India's growth in the services sector and information technology sector has not been matched by growth in manufacturing, which can provide more jobs. Conclusion of the answer is: a highly productive industrial base is the cornerstone of prosperity and development. Industrialization and manufacturing became a powerful escalator of economic development for countries like India.